I'd like to introduce our two illustrious speakers today. On my right is John Merola. John is the CEO of Merola Tile Distributors of America, also doing business as Summer Tile. And John's an industry expert with over 35 years of experience in the sale and distribution of ceramic tile. He's had roles from starting in a local tile showroom back in Brooklyn, New York 35 years ago, all the way to now running a large distributor, a large national distributor. So John brings a wide variety of experience, and they have, Merola Tile has been using Material Bank for some time. He's going to share some of their experiences. On my left is Ann Demers, who's the VP of Products and Marketing for Specialty Tile Products, and she's a second-generation owner of the business. She's from Atlanta, Georgia, and has been in and around the business for over 25 years. She's got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Design and a background in retail display and industrial design. So, and Specialty Tile's been using Material Bank for some time as well. And what's great about the two speakers here today is they bring some different perspectives on how they're using Material Bank, which we hope will be valuable to all of you. I do want to remind you that this is intended to be an interactive session. So while John and Ann have a little bit of presentation to share with you, then we're going to ask you to ask questions of them. So please just raise your hand when you've got a question, and I'll call on you, and we'll make this an interactive session.
And I'll be running a mic.
And so if you have a question and you raise your hand, Vanna will bring a mic to you. So thanks, everybody, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Ann, would you like to start with the presentation?
Yes, thank you. Okay. We got that out of the way. So we just wanted to cover a little bit about how Material Bank works, because I know I get a lot of questions since you can't necessarily sign up and use the site if you're not an architect or designer yourself. I get a lot of questions about how it works. So Material Bank is a paid software platform. So the designers and architects essentially sign up. They get vetted to some degree, right? You can't sign up with a Gmail address. You need to have like an official business address. And they use the software for free. It's an online database of tens of thousands of products all across different sort of interior design fields, fabric, hard surfaces, etc. And the vendors that display their products on there, they pay a monthly fee to be on Material Bank, and then they also pay every time a user of Material Bank orders a sample. So you can order 1 to 5 samples for one fee for a vendor, but the designer experience is that they get them all packaged together in very nifty packaging that's eco-friendly and can be returned. All of these samples that are ordered by midnight, East Coast time, arrive by 10:30 a.m. the next morning. So it's very efficient for them. They like that it's small packaging, not a bunch of peanuts, not 18 different boxes coming in. The cost of it is, for the vendors, is about $30 a sample. So they're all next day, early AM. And then platform rates, I think, are about $1.5K per month to be on the site. So it does include that kind of advertising element to the design community. So Material Bank is really big on technology. They have robots that run the whole platform, that kind of go around and pick all the products, and then they have people that package them out. So they have a facility in Mississippi that's really huge. I think they're expanding all the time. They're working on adding a residential platform later this year. Currently, they have residential users that use their site as is, but I think they're going to branch that out potentially later this year. So it's a pretty big operation. So we sort of separated a little bit. I think Summer Tile and Specialty Tile have very different experiences with Material Bank. We sort of specialize in different parts of the industry. So we'll kind of cover what our experience is, and then John will do the same. So why we chose Material Bank: for one, access. We accidentally joined Material Bank right when COVID started. It was dumb luck that we sort of signed up early enough to be live on the platform literally April 1st of 2020. So it was very convenient because as everything went virtual, we felt like we still had access to designers. It was been very difficult in the past year to be physically in front of architects and designers showing product. So having something that sort of advertised to them directly that they wanted to go to was really convenient. So lots of access. I think all of the major firms across the country are on Material Bank and use it regularly. And we do get designers that ask us, are you on Material Bank? And so it got to the point where it was like, well, are you in or are you out, right? Like, they're already on the platform. If you're not on the platform, are they exclusively using that platform and no longer going to look anywhere else for tile? And so that was something that sort of prompted us. So the brand is definitely well liked in the industry. Designers like Material Bank. They, I think, really enjoy the ease in the packaging and all that, but generally speaking, Material Bank has a lot of brand value. And the technology, it makes it really efficient. Okay, so what do we love about Material Bank? The target audience. As I said, there are a lot of professional interior designers and architects on the platform, so it's really great to be able to connect with them across the country. Traditional marketing for that, wouldn't be cheap or easy, and so we find that that's a really good value. The outreach, for us, we sell commercially. We can't be on the ground in all of these different cities. So to have this footprint, whether it be digital and then sending products out to people in that follow-up has been really effective in generating leads. As I said, the brand, the brand is really well respected in the industry. And industry data. Material Bank gives you all sorts of industry data. You get, sort of, I think they're like monthly or quarterly different types of seminars that they can do, talking to you about like designers' habits, what kind of trends they're seeing, that kind of thing. So as well as, the industry data that you just get on yourself, like what are people ordering from us? It's really well tracked, and it's really kind of like a little technology machine. What do we hate? So we don't love the duplicate series. So I think Material Bank was really designed for industries where you have end users buying products directly from manufacturers, carpet, fabric, that type of thing. When you get into tile, it's a little bit like the Wild West, as we all know. So you do have people private labeling series and duplicating series. In the beginning, I think Material Bank sort of naively thought that they were going to police that and said something to the effect of, after one person puts a series on there, you won't be able to put that series on again. I don't know how long that lasted, but I can't imagine it was more than like 30 days. So now you'll see the same series over and over again from different suppliers calling it something different. Residential leads. Residential leads on Material Bank, in our experience, are incredibly difficult to close. You really can follow up, and I think ultimately those people are, in my opinion, using the service for the free sample and closing a deal in a showroom somewhere or a different type of an environment. For me personally, I don't enjoy paying $30 to next day air a sample to somebody working on a backsplash, right? That's not cost efficient. I think that's been a complaint with several users, and so I'm anxious to see how they'll change that if they do a residential platform. Material prep. It is a lot to cut the samples, label them. They want them barcoded. You've got to ship them out with packing lists. It's like you get a list every week. Here's what you need to refill. So you really have to have kind of a little team of people ready to package and supply all of those samples. So how's it working for us? So we have about 1,800 sample requests that we've had from over 1,000 firms. Let's see, 24% of our designers have ordered repeatedly, and it's probably higher than that. That's people that have ordered repeatedly from us through Material Bank, but we also have gotten people that just direct email now us and ask for additional samples. 64% of the orders were after 5 p.m. Material Bank did a lot of research on when designers want to order samples. Obviously, we're not shipping out samples after 5. So it really is a lot of designers that prefer to complete those type of things end of day. 35% of the leads have been residential. 68% of the leads came from outside of our traditional territory. I think, for us, that's where the gold is, right? I don't necessarily need, I already have reps in the field doing things in my formal territory, so those kind of outside territory leads are effective. And then just as far as the breakdown, a lot of the commercial projects have been, tenant improvement, workplace, multifamily, hospitality. So specialty has spent around $60,000, as well as internal costs, right, like material samples, that kind of thing, payroll to restock it. And we've done quite well. So we have currently already sold over $100K in jobs. We're actively bidding $150,000 in jobs, and we have open jobs that are specified to the tune of $750,000. So we have found that it's been pretty effective. Come on. Okay. So why have we been effective? I think this exercise, preparing for this panel, was really helpful because we got to really compare and contrast, and I don't think I totally realized why we were being effective. And I think a lot of it is tracking. So how do you know if you've sold a material bank job? We are very active with the CRM. We input our jobs. We know when they've closed. So we have a lot of effort putting into tracking it. A dedicated rep. It really is important to follow up on your leads over and over again. So having somebody that's dedicated to servicing those leads and touching base with the designer after the sample goes out really helps. And new products. It's really key to keep adding new products on Material Bank. Keep it fresh, wanting them to go to your page, check out what's new. And when you do have new products, Material Bank is really good about helping you push that out, right? Like they're constantly posting stuff on social media and kind of doing special emails to highlight new products. So maybe you'll have a better,
With that, I get the floor.
a
Thank
better
you, Ann.
chance.
Thank you, Rick. So good morning, everybody. So, our introduction into Material Bank was sort of, I guess, a little different. We were at a trade show, and some gentleman came in and said, hey, we'll take your samples, put them in our warehouse, and we'll distribute them for you. I'm like, but we have a sample department. And like, no, but we can get you with architects and designers, stuff like that. And I really wasn't that interested because, you like to control those things within your own operation. You don't want to share your data or other things with another company. And they said, let us send you an example. And they sent this box. And in this nice box were all these nice samples from other people that had already, the first group of people to join. And it was a really, really nice experience. Like, we all try and create, as a distributor, a professional experience for the customer. And it was very interesting to look at it. And I felt as if I was someone working for someone on a project, that would be a great tool to help my customers. So as COVID hit and the trade shows were shut down for a while, we had this budget to invest in trade shows. Why don't we try this out? Because we're a typical wholesaler. We sell tile, and we'll sell to brick and mortar stores, but architects, designers, it's a whole different world that we didn't know. So we figured, let's give it a shot. And when people call samples, the team goes out and they pull the samples every day. Material Bank said we picked, I think, 50, 80 items, and we just sent them like 100 of each item. And so it was just very easy. Instead of having someone do an individual order, we got a lot of efficiency by just doing a bulk order, just a big crate of samples for each individual item. And so that helped us run our sample department in a much more efficient way. And then scale was good. We know that if those first set of items did well, let's just pick another 50 and we can easily expand from the 50 or 80 SKUs we have now up to 1,000 if we had to. And so for us as a importer or even a manufacturer or even someone that has just, your world is the A&D world, that ability to scale and grow, they made it very easy. And of course, I said, we're not typically an A&D supplier, so trying out this new marketplace, because the world of competition is changing faster and quicker than we've ever seen before. The tile industry 10 years ago to now, and then where it's going tomorrow, with the internet, big box stores, and then we all have to be ready to change if we want to survive through the industry changing. So it sounded like a good opportunity for us. So the things that really made us happy is we got leads almost immediately. Within the first few days, we get an email every morning, and the email has a complete list. It has the name of the person that asked for the sample, where they're located, phone number, contact information. We got the list of the samples that they asked for. We got the name of the project they're working on, whether it was residential or commercial. Or hospitality. They give you a lot of data, and this data gets compiled. So even at the end of the year, you can run this big spreadsheet, and you have, this whole list of everyone. You can really look down into the details of who's engaging your product on their website. And you also get the national reach. So we're in New Jersey, but we ship to California every single day. We're getting leads in Washington, Montana. We're reaching the entire country. As a typical national distributor, very good for us. People that are typically regional, it may be a little shock for them. So we can get more into that in a little bit. And then, and there you go. Just my last comment there is just about commercial scale. If you're prepared to handle big orders, some of these big companies, there are some big companies using Material Bank for large projects, and you're going to get access to those customers. Things we don't love. So, efficiency. So for us personally, and I'll show you in the next slide, is we've gotten thousands of leads. But as a wholesaler, usually we just have a store call up, place the order, we get the PO, we ship it. But now we have to engage people in a different way. And do we want to sell a designer directly, or is this a lead that we should be sending directly to one of our distributors based on the region? And then you get all different challenges too. We got a phone call, and I think it was just yesterday. And it was a dealer, and they needed a job for a residential project. And we're like, okay, great, we're going to send you to ABC Tile Store in Montana. And they're like, why won't you sell me directly? And by the way, the order's for 20 square feet. And I'm like, this is the type of project we should be sending to one of our dealers. I mean, this is not really, and so now we have the risk of possibly offending that customer. So really figuring out how to be efficient with the leads and teaching us how to manage those leads. And the lead quantity, we're getting lots of them. We are getting lots of leads, but you don't know which ones are good and which aren't. So is it quality and quantity? So we want quality leads, but at the same time, the quantity is nice. If you have a dealer in a small area, you can give them, 10, 20 leads a month and say, hey, at least we're supporting our distributors back. But if they're 20 square foot leads, we just paid $30 to get a lead where you're not going to make your profit back. So deciphering between the level of a good quality lead or someone that's just a weekend warrior designer, Material Bank hasn't really figured that out. And the thing is, we signed up to get like commercial A&D leads, and now we're getting weekend warrior designers, which are great. We need that consumer. Those are the bread and butter of many of our companies. But the expense to get that lead is a little tough. Case studies. Here comes our stats. I didn't study this, so I'll just sort of paraphrase, but we've gotten a lot of leads. This is, what's our time frame in this? This is just, from the beginning. So we get huge amounts of leads. It's just trying to decipher which ones are good or not. When you're running this many leads, when you're getting, a couple hundred leads a month, how do you distribute them to your team? How do you make sure you communicate with the customer? And then how do you follow up? So we have a lead. It looks like it's a large company. They ordered 5 different samples. A few days later, they ordered more samples. Sounds like for the same project. How do we follow up on that consumer? How do we know, well, the project's 6 months from now. How do we follow up with that? We're not an A&D distributor, so we don't know how to manage that. And then if we send a lead to one of our A&D expert customers, how do we follow up to make sure they're following up? So these things get like a challenge for us. But, and it says our sales, well, I'll talk about our investment. Our investment has been about $14,000 a month. So I'd say we've probably spent $150,000 in sampling with Material Bank, which is about how much we would pay to run a trade show if we ran a major booth. So we spent our budget in marketing, trying to engage customers. We're just not sure if we don't know how to measure how many actually turned to sales through the so-called register. In recent months, now that the world's opened up, our brick and mortar sales have boomed. And we don't know if that's because of our hard work, luck, or is it because Material Bank has had those people find themselves through our chain of supply and didn't necessarily say, oh, by the way, make sure you check this off as it was Material Bank investment. But on the whole, we are getting lots of leads, and we are happy at least with that type of activity. So things to be successful. You got to control. You need to know your information. You need to manage it through your team and really find a way to measure the results. And then just all that data. So if you're going to go heavily in Material Bank as a distributor, you want to be able to measure all that. So you need an analyst to help you sort of navigate the things. And I think that was my final slide.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks, Ann. Excellent presentations. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. Vanna will bring the microphone to you. But in the meantime, I've certainly got a few questions to start with. So I guess one of several questions I have, guys, is how do you find manufacturers work through Material Bank? And are you feeling like you're competing with your suppliers on Material Bank?
We definitely contacted all of the manufacturers that we carry that are on Material Bank and asked them to send us the leads. So I'm not sure if they would have volunteered that originally or not, but they have all been really good about that. They send us the leads for their products. I think that's probably how Material Bank was designed to work originally, that the manufacturers are on there and they can just push stuff through distribution. So it hasn't been a concern for us, but yes, it is difficult to have that coincide with what you're trying to show. If, obviously if a manufacturer's on there, I'm not going to show those lines, so.
Right, good. How about you, John? Have you had
Well, for us as an importer, we have our product from Spain and Italy. Unless one of those factories has a footprint or a warehouse in the United States, why would they put samples in Material Bank? They want us as their distributor in the U.S. So if it's product that's exclusively ours, either we designed it or we're the main distributor, we need to put those samples on Material Bank as the manufacturer. And still figuring out how to either distribute the lead or not, because people can alternate. And then what's the level where you might want to consider selling them directly? It's like if someone says, oh, by the way, I have $1 million order or I have a $100,000 order. $100,000 order is a little, you have to have a good relationship with the customer to send it through. So we're still learning how to decide when does a lead count as maybe we want to consider selling directly, but you also can put at risk the honor of yourself as a company if you don't honor your distributors that are already supporting you. So.
Have either of you found that Material Bank has either a stronger or sort of a weaker presence in different regions of the country?
I feel like it's pretty even. I mean, you get definitely all of the major cities, but we kind of showed some area maps of where our leads are coming from, and it's spotted all over the place. So I think it's pretty even balanced.
Yeah, regionally, wherever the people are is I think where you're going to get most of the leads. I think though through COVID, some of the bigger cities sort of been a little bit of an exodus to the suburbs. So we've seen at least a little more traffic in the areas surrounding the big cities, not necessarily in the core center.
And you mentioned the duplicate issue, right? That there are, Material Bank intends to not allow duplicate products, but it's really impossible for them to do that. Is that partially because there's so much private labeling?
Yes, I think, we joined Material Bank pretty early on. There were not a lot of tile companies on there at the time that we joined. And so, we don't necessarily private label all of our products. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to partner with some of our manufacturers, show their product by name, get some of their support with the products that we were showing on there. And, that has worked out great for us, but definitely it hasn't been the way that it's ended up. Other companies have put some of the same products on there private labeled. So at that point, you're just kind of like, oh, that product's on there 3 times, live and let live.
Right. How does a designer, I assume that they search for a product, right? So I'm not really sure how it works. As a designer, I've never been able to log on as that. But do they see 3 different Material Bank suppliers that have the same product, and then they choose the one they want to use for?
They can search by brand. They can search by finish type. They can search by color. There's 180 different tags, I think, that they have on each item. So they're really good about cataloging all of the products in a way that, however a designer wants to search, they're going to get results back. So, I don't think the designers necessarily search by name ever. in the tile industry for the most part. They might be looking for a blue tile, and then they all come up. So in that instance, it is possible that two of the same tiles would come up back to back. But I don't know that that's such a huge user experience concern.
Okay. Reminder to the audience, if you have a question, just raise your hand and we'll get to you. Meanwhile, I'm just going to keep rapid firing questions.
If I could, so
Go ahead, John.
you know, if you haven't opened an account on Material Bank, you're all industry professionals. You all probably here will be eligible to open an account. And we've all shopped online, and you get to pick all your different things. And one of the things that might prevent people from sometimes being repeats is when you build an item on Material Bank, you load all the attributes for the products. You're going to put the size, the color, the shade, the finish. Now, I might call something white. Someone else might call it off-white. We'll call it porcelain. They'll call it ceramic porcelain. So duplicate products might be on the website, but since the people use sort of different attributes to build and create the experience of that product, you might actually not wind up seeing the same product, even though there might be 5 different versions of the same tile on the website. But it's fun to just search around and look. I think everyone would benefit from having that experience.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that. So would either of you have a suggestion or advice for maybe a smaller distributor who doesn't have a national presence getting into Material Bank? Can they focus their use of Material Bank on a certain region or territory?
So if I was a small distributor and I was maybe importing my first truckload of tile, I probably would go and test 1 or 2 items and put them up. It's an investment. And then just see what happens. Go and take some good photographs, look at the information, see what the experience is when someone comes into your showroom, and try and recreate that when that person actually visits the site. And you'll get the leads, and you could decide in a few months. We're all making investments to grow a business, and I think if you want to like test the waters in something, you will get leads. And how they turn into sales will really be up to you, but I think it's a worthwhile test.
I think if you don't have experience in the commercial kind of job realm, that's something that you have to figure out pretty quick. Closing a commercial job obviously is, unique. The person that ordered the sample is typically not the person that's ever going to place an order, and you really have to chase down, the GCs and the tile contractors and actively quote those projects. And so if you're not prepared to fight for that sale to close it, then it probably is not going to turn into your sale. Typically, by the time you get down to the tile contractor ordering, it's pretty easy for them to try to figure out what a product is if it's private labeled, where to get it locally. I have an account with this guy, I'd rather order from him, that kind of thing. You really have to actively go after your jobs to close them.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? I mean, you don't want to have all that investment and all that work, and then they've just basically taken the product you specified and handed over to the local guy.
Yeah, the fun just got started at that point.
Right, of course.
So if my sort of my knowledge of understanding, which I'm not in the whole A&D like spec world, but when someone with a manufacturer is working on a project, they usually will register it either with their manufacturer or the major distributor, so that at least if you made the effort with the sample and going through the steps with the client, the commitment from your distributor should be right on that, and tracking that. That's something that we have to learn how to do. Mm-hmm. But I think that gives sort of a sense of security for that industry, that you register the job and then the project's there. And I know our overseas factories actually do that quite often, because a lot of them do work on a project-based business.
So both of you talked a little bit about the investment that you take, both in terms of what it costs to place the samples with Material Bank, but then also the work that you have to do, right? Your folks have to put together the samples to their specifications with the barcoding, et cetera, and then the follow-up, and maybe it's data entry into the CRM, et cetera. Have either of you sort of tracked and measured that investment? So, are you, I don't remember the numbers that you said, Ann, but let's say that it was, hey, we've already sold, we spent $14,000 and we've sold $100,000 worth of product, but is the spend really significantly greater than 14 because of the other investment, the employee investment, et cetera?
Yeah, I would say yes. We do try to reduce those costs by asking the manufacturer to provide all of the products for free that we are going to then, cut, label, and ship out to Material Bank. So You know, over time, and especially since a lot of our products are imported as well, if I've got to fill a lead and I'm pulling it from stock, right, those are material costs that we don't always calculate exactly, probably as thoroughly as we should. You know, the staff, yes, depending on, you know, the quality of the person that you're going to have following up with these leads, right, that payroll can vary widely, but to have somebody that is experienced with A&D customers and knows how to follow up on commercial jobs is a big bonus, and that person typically is, you know, going to be a little bit more than an inside sales position. And I would say, you know, yeah, sample costs is significant, like the labor for that.
Yeah, do you have anything else to
No,
add to that?
just, you know, sample cost is an expense that you're used to having. You know, for us, so in one particular trade show, which is not this show, we spent quite a lot of money running that booth. And we walked away from 5 days with a dozen people working this booth. We walked away with 800 leads. And half of them were people that we already knew, and the other half, I'm not really sure how you measure the performance from that type of sort of not tile-specific trade show. And so to walk away and say, Material Bank, we have 5,000 leads, and we just have to figure out how to manage that better, you know, I think it's a worthwhile investment for us. And to get the factories and vendors to share with the cost of the samples, not really hard to do.
John, you promised me there were going to be questions from folks that you had.
Try the back table over there.
So the data provided by Material Bank, you both have commented about how valuable that data is and how they've got a lot of data that they provide to you. Are you entering that data into your CRM, or is that something that Material Bank has, like an API or something that they can connect directly to your CRM, or is there, how does that work?
We don't have an API connected directly to our CRM. We typically don't enter every single lead into our CRM. You know, that would be great if we did, but it's a lot of leads. And for all the ones that don't pan out, it's like a lot of data entry for nothing. So we typically, when a product is actually specified, is when we'll enter in the project into our CRM. So you do get all of that information from Material Bank. Like you have, you know, as you said, John, you have a rolling sort of database of every single person, firm, product, job name, you know, type of job, everything at your fingertips. The time they ordered the sample, you know, how many times they've repeat ordered the sample, as well as industry data. And I think this is where the real gem is, the seminars that they do. They do all sorts of virtual presentations that you can sit on as a vendor. And it's so much market data about trends, about, you know, and especially during COVID when A&D was just sort of anybody's guess as to what was going on. They really had, you know, this is how we're moving into virtual. These are the platforms that people are using. This is the type of things that people are looking at in terms of how they look at products in a virtual world. And that data was all right there. So I think they have definitely the group of designers that they have using the platform, that's the, you know, data mining outside of just your samples. They mine all of that data and give it back to you, and that's pretty priceless.
Are there, besides just sort of the listing that you get at Material Bank, are there enhanced listings or advertisements, or do they do things to?
So, you know, Material Bank, I get an announcement email every day of any new product or any new vendor that joins onto Material Bank. And as a supplier on the website, I feel very confident that they're going to present a very professional image of our brand, of our company, of our products. I actually get a little jealous when I see other people put out products like, well, that looks really good. And right, and so they do a really good job at least supporting you back and making you feel important as a company. And I think the A&D community also feels important because they're getting presented in a professional manner. And I think it's really raised the bar. And then just talking back with CRM, you know, for us, we have 1,800 SKUs. We have, you know, 20 photographs of each product. We have room scenes. We have PDF. We have data sheets. We have installation tips. We know the size of the tile. We know the weight. We know the dimension. We know the pay rating. We know the decoff. We have all the stat of all our products, and we manage data in a great way. Then all of a sudden, we get these lists of leads from Material Bank, and we have no idea what to do with it yet. We're still trying to figure it out after all these months. And when we finally do figure it out, I think it's just going to be a great source for us to interact with that community and also for us to add value to our dealers and distributors.
Yep. You talked about the seminars that Material Bank provides. Are those seminars for the Material Bank product listers, or do they do seminars for their A&D?
They do
users?
both.
Okay.
So, and they will tell you kind of like what they're focused on. I know that for the vendors, they do a lot of, they're introducing a lot of new type of technology to their platforms, such as that you can do online presentations with a designer kind of live in a Material Bank platform. That you can build color palettes and like storyboards in Material Bank with your products that you can, you definitely can do enhanced listings in terms of, if you want to pay more, which I don't know if anybody is in that boat, but if you want to pay more, they will highlight and do other things. They're really good about, if you tag them on social media, they'll repost it. All that kind of stuff happens, obviously, without any extra charge. So yeah, it's pretty robust. I think you learn a lot about industry trends when you do attend the seminars.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Looks like we do have a question from the audience. Thanks, appreciate that, Joe. I'm gotten down to my last question, by the way.
Maybe it wasn't that important. Okay. One was, and either one, John or Ann, the process to refill the samples, do they tell you a certain time frame in advance to resend more samples because you're running low? And then also, if you run out, do they fine you?
They don't fine you. You have the option to fill the sample request from your location. So, and they actually track that too. So these are the number of samples that that you filled directly versus the ones that we filled for you. So they do give you weekly a inventory sort of list. So, it's not that advanced, right? Because if that list reflected a 0 count, you're already a little bit late. So you want to always have a buffer. I know you said you gave them like 100.
Yeah, we send at least 100 samples, and it's really up to you to manage your inventory on the site. There's no charge for storing the product. Once you're part of Material Bank and paying your monthly fee, so I can send them 1,000 samples. It doesn't necessarily make sense if it's going to take 20 years to move it. So you want to send them enough samples, 60 to 90 days worth of inventory, and it's really just self-managed.
Yeah, we did more like 20, because we wanted to know what would move and that kind of thing, and so we're like weekly, constantly restocking, which I don't necessarily recommend. It'd be good if we had a little bit deeper inventory, but typically for us, we'll take a full carton of tile, cut it all down, label it, ship that out. In terms of quantity, we don't necessarily go super deep. You get a charge if they, so when they return the sample, if you want that restocked as part of your inventory, you can pay for the privilege. Less than $30, yeah. Is it like $250 charge?
I don't know. I know they sell it as sort of a green feature that you don't have to throw your samples away and you can recycle them. I don't know if we've ever chosen to, because you never know what the sample's going to look like. You always want your sample to look brand new and perfect when you're sending it out to a project, and some people can really give a sample a lot of love, and yeah.
Great. Any other questions from the audience? So we'll keep looking. So with COVID and kind of the shutdown in the A&D community, and I'm not really sure that many of the A&D community have come back kind of to the office at this point yet, right? So you both started with Material Bank kind of either during or right before COVID, but as the A&D community starts to go back to the office, do you feel like their use of Material Bank will lessen in any way?
I don't. I think one of our priorities with being on Material Bank was the concern that designers are going to start only looking, if there's enough products on there, why would they bother to look anywhere else? It's obviously the most efficient platform for them to use. The samples come, immediately. They can order samples across, 200 different suppliers all at the same time, and it'll show up in one box. And it could not be more appealing to them to order samples from Material Bank. So the amount of work they have to do to find, things outside of that is not as efficient. And I think that's the whole beauty of Material Bank. Like what they really researched was that the #1 complaint in the A&D community was ordering samples is a pain in the butt, and I don't like doing it, and there's packaging everywhere, and it takes too long, and so they sought to solve that issue. It was the most pressing issue based on their research. So at that point, it's like, okay, are you, I mentioned earlier, are you in or you out? Like if they're only shopping there, that could be a firm that, we used to do a lot of business with that all of a sudden now is only on Material Bank. So what's a little bit frustrating about that is that we don't have all of our products on Material Bank, right? And the more products you put on there, which is I think why we have such varying degrees of cost, is, I want to add more products, and I know every time I add more products, I'm going to spend more money every month. So it's like kind of a balance, right?
So both of you talked about the follow-up to those leads. You get all these great leads, and then you got to follow up, and it might be a struggle to figure that out. Are you finding that you're going to need to even dedicate like inside salespeople after these leads? And one of the reasons I'm asking, Ann, is you have this big investment. They get these samples, they specify the product, but if you're not following up regularly and communicating with them, that specification may go to somebody else, even though it was your product that was the reason they did it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's several follow-up points. So, you want to wait, like they've already ordered the sample, right? So at least that's off your plate. That got done, they got their sample. So you want to, wait a week or two or however and say, hey, how's the sample? Are you going to specify it on a project? Like,
are you loving the sample?
Are you loving it too much? And it just really touch base with them and be, incredibly articulate and specific and, obviously very professional and courteous, but also, hey, did it work for you? If it didn't, what else can we give you? Are you, what's your price range? What's the project size? That kind of thing, and like really push to mine that information. And then as much information as you get, you'll get to the specification stage, which then is, probably like a 30% chance that you'll actually sell that job if you're on top of it. So it's definitely multiple follow-up levels and with different people. And, the more out of state you get, the more difficult that is.
And well, for us, I'm a warehouse guy. I actually, my first job in this industry was actually making sample boards, bucket of glue, stack of boards, and glue the tiles. And basically, from working in the warehouse and working some retail, but we're just a traditional wholesaler. And the language of the architect and designers, like I learned tile on the street. All right, I don't have a specific training, color training, and all these other things. I don't know how to communicate to these customers. And we sort of based our entire operation about being efficient in distribution. And so now on our team, we do need to hire someone that's an A&D rep that can speak the language, that understands the customers, and then incorporate that into our current format of doing business. And so we have our own lessons to learn.
Oh yeah, we've got a question here.
I can speak loud, that's okay. We're a small company from Indiana. We're transitioning from design and installation to opening a showroom in which we'll be relying heavily on our sample products on our showroom floor. I guess my question is, what is the best way to represent our company as we approach distributors? One, to legitimize our integrity in the growing tile industry, and two, ultimately to stock our showroom floor.
So as a wholesaler, you're going to have people like my company coming in to visit you to have you display a product in the store. And I think part of your negotiation as you meet with that distributor and your different people that are going to be your suppliers, ask them about Material Bank. Just say, if I'm going to be a distributor in this area, who else are you selling? And if you get leads or contacts or opportunities, in what zone are we going to have that relationship? And then as a business person, the people that respect you and honor you and work that relationship, you can establish trust. And those are the people that you're going to keep 5, 10, 20 years as a supplier. And so I would definitely work on that whole trust and relationship approach to that. That would be my approach.
I think as far as Material Bank is concerned, I've read that the residential platform is theoretically supposed to come out sometime this year, probably later in the year, if not at the beginning of next year. I think if you're not commercially based, that's probably a better route is to see what's going on with the residential platform and attack that, because I do think that it is very commercially focused, and it is that's just a different business model. And if it's such a big expense, we spend $5,000-6,000 a month, and I would guess that we're on the very low end of the spectrum of the investment. That and again, and as you mentioned, that doesn't include all the background costs. You really want to be focused on commercial leads if you're on the platform as it is today. So, the showroom element, it's very difficult to get any of those. We said 35%, I think, are residential leads. Our close rate is, on the residential side, 0.
So thanks for the question. So John, you have dealers all over the country that you're servicing. So are you sharing your Material Bank leads with them and then expecting them to follow up and close those leads? Or are you taking an approach more like what Specialty Tile is, which is kind of following up on your own, and then if the order comes in, giving it to your dealer?
Right, so
And if that's an inappropriate question, you can say, Rick,
no,
it's
that's a
inappropriate.
perfectly good question. So for the most part, I think we're taking the leads that we're getting and we're distributing that to our dealers throughout the country. Our challenge is we don't follow up. So, hey, where were those leads that we got in April? Can you give me an update? Who did you send them to? Which of our dealers? How many times did you follow up with them? Do we know if they reached out? Or did we just, I sent an email. Like, okay. So you sent an email. Did they confirm they received the email? Did they reach out to the client? Did you reach out to the lead directly and say, hey, by the way, I forwarded your lead. Did they reach out to them? And so we're forwarding them for the most part. I'm not sure if I could tell you if we've actually approached any directly. Usually what I've seen happen is at certain points they call us, and that's not really the right answer. If you're waiting for people to call you, we're probably losing a lot of leads falling through the cracks. So I would say, there you go.
I think it's a very different experience if you're, putting the leads through a distribution channel, if they're your leads. That is similar to what the manufacturer's experience is. I know, Atlas Concord is on Material Bank. We're an Atlas Concord distributor. They give us the leads. And they were like, how are you liking Material Bank? And, it's good. We're working on these projects. How are you like it? They're like, we have no idea. We just send all the leads to you guys. We have no idea if anything sells, right? So their experience is like paying all of the money and having none of the tracking, none of the information, other than knowing the amount of samples that they're paying for. And then, it would be up to us to get back to them and say, hey, we finally sold a project, which we're, probably don't get around to doing very often thoroughly. So that experience is really different than ours, where, we actively know every single job that was won or lost.
I see it, and I see Material Bank sort of fell in at the right time. As COVID hit and people couldn't get out, they were able to go to this website and get the sample, ship at home. But it's a big disruptor in the industry because it's changing. Me as a typical distributor who really has no footprint in the A&D world, we're actually talking to people in the business. And I think over the next 2 to 3 years, as they figure out, hey, the residential and commercial leads are different and need to be treated differently, and they spread to those different websites, and then how we learn to use it. Is really, I think, over the next few years, I think it's going to be pretty amazing what it turns into, or at least interesting to watch the ride.
So, Ann, if I'm a distributor and my suppliers are on Material Bank, like the example you just gave, and they're giving you a lead, are they giving that lead to all of their it's a commercial job? Are they giving that lead to all 20 of their distributors in the U.S., and now you're all kind of competing for that one job, or are they keeping it in based on where the job is? How does that work typically?
Yeah, they're keeping it based on the territory that the lead came from, so that doesn't necessarily mean that's where the job will be. There could be a designer in Los Angeles that specifies a project in New York, et cetera. So they would go with their distributor that has the official established territory for that. So they end up giving the leads out to a bunch of different distributors across the country based on territory.
Right, okay, good. We're nearing the end of our time. I want to make sure if you have a question, you get the opportunity. Yes?
I wonder about how well it works to promote large format tile with the sampling program, and how do you even sample fairly large tile?
There's a lot on there. We have not added panels yet. in my experience, panel jobs really need to be babysat, and so I'm nervous to put panel samples on there. Also, panels can be difficult to sample. You don't get, obviously the graphics don't really scale down perfectly, and so, let's say you have a white marble panel and you're going to cut that up into small samples for material bank, like 75% of them are going to be white and blank. You're like, okay, score, that's not going to work out for people, right? So we haven't done it. I would imagine based on the amount of panels on there that it's pretty popular. There's a lot of manufacturers that have added panels. So we probably will add them later this year. It's just a matter of making that process more efficient and really making sure that people responsibly specify panels. It can, a panel job can go sideways if it's not planned out properly.
So just with sample sizes, most sample sizes like a 3x5, like a index card size. Material Bank, once your sample gets too large or weighs too much, they will actually charge us additional for the weight. And so there is like a reason why not to put too large samples on there, because it could start getting very expensive.
Yeah, we get overage fees every month for our weight.
And other than the panels, I mean, even talking about typical floor tiles, whether it's, or maybe a 24
Yeah,
by 48.
we sample in a larger size than some other people. We do a 6x12 because it's our sort of internal sample size, and we wanted to stick with that. That's a little on the big side. We might go down to a 6x6. Obviously, wall tiles get sampled in full pieces depending on their size. There's a big range. The feedback that we've gotten is that a slightly bigger size, like a 6x6 or a 6x12, is appreciated because you can see more of the product. But I would say, based on their packaging, that's probably a hard limit, is to go as large as 6x12. So, yeah, and certain things too, the types of products that you put on there, I think really vary in terms of how eye-catching they are. So, if you have a line, like we have a line that are these little wood planks that come in 20 colors, they get sampled like candy. I mean, it's just like constant, right? Like, oh, I want all 5 colors of these. So, that versus a cement look that's super budget friendly, that probably is more speccable in real life. Like, it just doesn't fly off the page. There might be hundreds of cement looks on there, and that doesn't get sampled as much. So I think it's really important to have a mix of flashy, catchy stuff and, good sellers. There's also an option to price your products on Material Bank, which we did, and I think that that's helped us. It's a little controversial, right? Like, it's tough to put, obviously it's budget pricing for projects, but what we found is that East Coast pricing looks pretty good on the West Coast, so it's actually been a benefit to getting some projects out there.
Thanks. Any other questions? We're nearing the end of the session, and thank you all for coming and joining. John or Ann, is there anything that you wanted to share that you haven't gotten an opportunity to yet? Anything you want our audience to sort of leave with today?
So just talking one last thing about just sample size. So we mostly sell smaller format, and so typically what we'll do is we'll just send a whole tile. Anything up to a 12 or 13-inch square tile, we just send a whole tile. So we get some pretty big bills for weight. But, we sell a lot of decorative tiles, so they have like the patterns on them. If you send someone like a little chip, I figure we're just going to get a designer very upset with us. So the larger the sample that you're comfortable sending is what I would recommend if you put product on there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everybody for attending today. I hope you enjoyed the session. I thought Ann and John did a great job. Thanks, guys, very much.
Thank you,
Thanks
Rick.
for having
Thank you,
us.
Ann.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great job.